The headlines. Millions of residents are told to evacuate Florida as Hurricane Ian brings dangerous winds and heavy rain. Say goodbye. I want to leave you with the scene live, I should say, in Florida. You can see on your screens now Fort Myers, near to where the eye of the storm made landfall a couple of hours ago. Vehicles have been blown over. There's localized flooding already. That's it from us.
Let's turn our attentions to Florida, which is being battered by Hurricane Ian, one of the most powerful storms in U.S. history.
At one stage, winds were as powerful as 150 miles per hour. 2 million homes are without power. Some towns have been almost entirely submerged under floodwater. Azadeh Mashiri has more from Florida.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're coming on the air because Hurricane Ian is about to make landfall along Florida's southwest coast.
Ian has made landfall around Fort Myers.
The hurricane has made landfall as well as the headlines across U.S. networks. That's because it's become one of the strongest hurricanes to ever strike the United States.
Right now, the rain is actually painful as it hits you. I'm glad nobody else is out on the street here. Whoa, oh boy, huge gust.
And now the dangers are multiplying. The life-threatening winds and flooding have already caused damage throughout Florida's southwestern coast, with debris traveling through the waters and cars submerged. Buildings like this beachfront hotel in Naples have been overwhelmed, forcing people to wade through the water. Some areas like Tampa Bay have seen a rare occurrence, what's called a reverse storm surge. Ian's winds have been so powerful they've swept away massive amounts of water, leaving bare shorelines. But that water will soon come barreling back. Now several states have also declared a state of emergency, reckoning with the breadth of the hurricane and realizing Florida is not the only place Ian has in its crosshairs. Azadeh Mashiri, BBC News.
And we will get the latest from Florida in just a moment. But of course, that storm started in Cuba, was first identified in Cuba, where 2 people have died. And we saw obviously the impact it had in Cuba before making its way to Florida, where the whole of the country was without electricity and without power. And of course, that report of 2 people dead. And we're hearing more about the devastation and the impact on the infrastructure in Florida as the hours go on.
Let's go now to CBS correspondent Jason Allen, who's in Tampa in Florida. Jason, very good morning to you. Bring us right up to date. What's the situation as we speak to you now?
Good morning. The west coast of Florida here is in a much better situation. Obviously, you don't see that heavy rain falling anymore. This backside of the storm, it is much drier. However, it is still very powerful, so there are still some wind gusts that are punching through this part of the city. The major concern with the storm right now is in the central part of the state, in Orlando, where you have Disney, some of the theme parks. There are flash flood warnings there. Also, all the way to the east coast to the Daytona Beach area, you could see a foot and a half of rain. That is the area of focus right now as this storm continues that very slow move across the state of Florida.
And Jason, tell us more about how this compares to other events. I mean, we're just showing some of the pictures you've been describing there of the water surges, the storm surges. But Florida's well used to bad storms. How does this compare?
Florida is very used to it, and the people here are told every season to prepare for it, to be ready to survive on their own for 3 to 5 days if they need to, without power and without being able to get out. But even with that, this is a historic storm for this state. I believe it's tied for the 4th strongest ever to hit the state of Florida, one of the strongest ever then to hit this country. There was a storm that took a similar path back in 2004 and had similar strength. That was Charlie, but at that point it maybe only had wind gusts in the Tampa area, half of what this storm did. And we definitely didn't see that type of surge that we saw down in the Fort Myers area with this storm. As you were talking about, a surge that was high enough to completely inundate the first story of buildings, to leave people stuck in their homes. I'm sure we will likely hear stories of people on rooftops waiting for rescues. We know that some of those rescues are still happening here in the early morning, the overnight hours. There are crews out on boats trying to get to some of those homes where people are waiting for help. And we expect those to continue as the sun comes up and people are able to get even further into those inundated areas.
And Jason, in terms of the way people have responded, and you spoke before about how used people are there to having to take precautions to get out of the area. This time round, did that work? I mean, you know, people were advised to get out, and then there was a point where they were told, too late, you must stay where you are.
And you described something that's very difficult for people here as well. They're so focused on the track. And originally, this storm was forecast to go further to the north. And so you had people who evacuated down to the south, and then it took a turn. That's something that people here are always aware of. They think maybe the storm isn't going to come to my neighborhood. I think in the days before the storm, we saw people who were split. Maybe about half of the population decided to go out, go to different areas to wait this one out. Others decided they've seen the storm move before. They could close up the doors. They could put the boards over the windows. They could wait this out. That may have been an okay idea in cities like the one that we're in right now. But people who waited it out down to the south, those are some of the people right now who are waiting for rescue in these early morning hours.